Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today, I'm looking at New X-Men number 121, The Silent Issue. Before I get started, I want to give a quick shout out to all of the subscribers. The channel is growing at a rapid race, getting a lot of good comments and feedback, which I appreciate. Keeps me motivated to continue making this content for you guys. If you're new to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe, and you'll get this great comic content as well. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to John's Comics With on Instagram, and he has a YouTube channel. Over the summer, he kind of instigated a group read of the New X-Men run by Grant Morrison and several artists. Most notably is probably Frank Quitely. We had like a little group thread going on where we were discussing it, and this issue definitely is one that got the most conversation going in the group. I read these when they came out. I bought them month to month, and then I ended up selling off that run, and then I bought the first omnibus, the first printing of the omnibus that came out. I ended up giving that away to a nephew of mine one year. So I ended up reading it digitally over the summer with John and several other folks. But then I was at the shop the other day, and I was kind of flipping through some books, and I saw this one, and it was only a couple bucks, and I was like, you know what? That'd be a great one to do for the channel. So I went ahead and bought another copy of this book that I've owned in the past, and just wanted to kind of flip through it. It's the Nuff Said month. So a lot of people think this Nuff Said month had to do with 9/11, and it really did not. Even though it did come out, shortly after 9/11, it was something that was already planned and in the works. Pretty much every Marvel book had a Nuff Said issue in this particular month, or within like 2 months. I think it was 2 to 3 months. Like every book had a Nuff Said issue. It was something that was kind of a gimmick, like a line-wide gimmick, to let the art shine. I'm sure it's something that the artists really, enjoyed. The writers, I guess they got paid the same for this, but that like Grant Morrison gave Quietly probably a pretty detailed script for this one. But this takes place, I guess we're like 5 issues in, 114, we're 7 issues in to the Grant Morrison run now. So the previous arc had just wrapped up with Cassandra Nova, who this is kind of like a big reveal on who she is at this point. Now Morrison does do a little cheating in this in a few places with the silence. So instead of having word balloons and stuff, we're going to have some parts where we're going to use like signage and stuff to communicate. So Cassandra Nova is kind of in like a comatose state, but we've also just learned that Xavier's mind is actually trapped in her body, and Cassandra Nova in Xavier's body has gone off with the Shi'ar to, kind of take a vacation, so to speak. So they've just kind of figured out that like it's really Xavier inside the mind of this body. So Jean Grey and Emma Frost are going to psychically go into the mind of technically Xavier. And this is something like, even though there's no words, you could just flip through this like super fast, but really you've got to look at the details of all the things, like just the walking up and getting ready. Emma pulls out a flask, takes a quick swig off it, and she's like eyeing Jean the whole time. And Jean looks almost like she's doing like a cut it out, like throat slashing motion, or let's go even. And then they come down to like just go into the mind. And I like the way the color fades here. It like slowly turns to this pink and even starts to like take over the silhouettes. Oh, this panel is just incredible. Even up here, it's like you don't even notice it at first, but like this is the silhouette of the Cassandra Nova head, right? And this is like their foreheads, like, touching it as they journey into it, and the spiraling into his mind. And it's not a full spiral, it's just sections of circles going in. And even like you've got like a staircase right here. And you can spend a lot of time just like, look at all the expressions on Xavier's face. He's like happy, he's mad, he's sad, everything. And I'll look at even this. I could just keep talking about it over and over. if you've ever played with like a 360 camera, this outer ring almost feels like that. Like they call them tiny globes. And it almost has that feeling because this is the bottom of her shoes. Like she's standing up, but then it's like bending and stretching around. And then it even crosses over into the panel, pointing into his brain. And you see her feet come back around. And then they're walking down the staircase. I mean, you can go on this. Gosh, I mean, like the more I stare at this, and I've read this now a few times over the years, and I still find more stuff to just like look at this spiraling in. Finally, you get to that last panel, which shows her in this kind of like seaside, and you know, you've got this eerily looking red water. I don't think it's meant to be blood, but I mean, maybe it's meant to kind of communicate some of that. You've got these faces on the wall and this tower with these random spotlights shining on it. So here's where Morrison's going to kind of cheat with the silent enough said stuff. We're going to communicate with psychic emojis. All through it. So these faces are like doors, and so, you know, they're questioning what's going on with the doors. This one seems to open its face and like kind of come out a little bit, which startles them, and they take a step back. And then Jean's communicating, we need to get to that tower over here. Emma clearly saying, like, how are you going to get there? And she's like, don't worry about that. I've got that covered. And then I guess this is communicating like, well, how am I going to come? And then you get these eyes like blasting her. Like she's not ready for it, so she gets blasted. The exclamation mark. The dust cells like, and look at the faces here. The faces on the doors are smiling like, oh, we got her. And then she's turned to diamond, a little diamond emoji. This isn't as diamond as she looks. A lot of times now when they draw her diamond, and even in this series, she looks more blue. Here it just looks like almost like she's got a little shiny coat over her skin. And now the faces are sad. They're sad. It didn't work. And then she starts kind of reconstituting her clothing because this is all in her mind, so she can do whatever she wants. And she decides to attack the doors. Meanwhile, Jean is now using her abilities to essentially build a bridge to walk across. And the more you look at this, and her hair starts to change ever so slightly into a bird shape until finally, I mean, even there, it's just a little bit of a bird. You kind of start seeing the tail feathers there until finally you see that phoenix style at the end. I like these ominous Cassandra Nova heads around the top of the tower. And just the bricks and stuff. It's like she's pulling the bricks from this other building that she's in. So she picks up some rubble here to start it, but then is just pulling the bricks here to build the bridge to walk across. So Emma's turning this door into like sludge, and there's even a little green on it. Now Jean's like running across even faster as those ominous heads start like shooting eye beams, kind of like the doors did there. Shoots her, blasts her off, and she falls. Emma finds it amusing, sticks her tongue out at her. Here comes another like piece of the door coming off. So it's just like morphing into different shapes. And I love how the faces change expression on the doors every time. They're spitting this green goo on her. Again, we have these like interesting details of letters and numbers. Some sort of X shape right here. I can't really make out exactly what it is. Maybe it's supposed to be like the Cerebro design. because it's not an exact circle. It kind of comes up right up at the top. Anyway, she starts using these letters and stuff to, finish off her platform to walk back into the tower. And in there we find the trapped Xavier mind. And I love these like kid drawings on the side and other random things like 2 figures and these gas masks on them and a little jar that looks like it has a fetus in it. And this is his wheelchair kind of floating around him, almost like it too is something that's like kind of kept him confined and bound down. See the crutches too. I mean, all the little fine details, even up here. I mean, you look at everything in the room. There's a spinal cord wrapping up around that cage. Some books over here. I mean, everything is placed for a reason. The snow globe, and then we see, and it's clearly like sperm. So I guess this is Xavier's parents, even though it looks a lot like Professor Xavier there. And there now Jean's following the sperm through the uterus to the egg. This is a face of embarrassment that Jean's having to do this, I suppose. And we see that actually 2 make it in. Well, no, I guess it's just 1. This is kind of an odd one there. I noticed too the color, like I'm just noticing too that we have like a halftone pattern, dot pattern in the colors here. Let's see if I can show that. And it's only in those panels, like it's not in that one. It's only, let's see if I can get it to. And it's up here too. It's an interesting choice I just noticed. I don't know if I noticed that on the digital. So I'm wondering if that, because it's not on this panel or this panel, and it is sort of inside that. Gosh, well, even when you look at this, you can kind of see that it's like the sperm in there. So we see the eggs split apart, which would be identical twins. Definitely probably one of the most psychedelic issues of X-Men. We're only halfway through. And the fetus are waking up. Becoming aware of each other. Well, one's becoming aware of the other. And I'm not sure which one is supposed to be who here. Is it Xavier? Is this one Xavier that wakes up first, or Charles and sees Cassandra, and then he starts going after Cassandra immediately and she fights back? Or is it the other way around? Or is it Cassandra that tries to kill Charles and Charles fights back? So this kind of breaks some of the rules of like, mutant powers don't develop until puberty. I mean, it's comic books, do whatever you want, but that does kind of bend some of the conceptions that we've had of X-Men for many years. And it's one of those things that Morrison, I think, brought to the table that kind of bothered older fans, which, I mean, I was an older fan at that point, but I loved this run. And I guess it kind of shows you, like, sometimes you can look past stuff if you're enjoying the run, even if it goes against the conventional, thoughts that you have for that particular title or characters or whatever. So we see Xavier's mother. We see something happening to her, like where the twins are essentially fighting in the womb. And as we go down, Jean, discards the snow globe. and is having like a moment with the Xavier mind here. She's pointing to the two, like there were two of you. And then the tower comes tumbling down. So like these sparse amounts of panels, sometimes you know, some might think that that's kind of being lazy on the artist's part, but it's giving a sense of like cinematography as we move in like this. So we're zooming in, we're like way out, we're zooming in, we're zooming in, we're zooming in. So if we filled up this space with more stuff, would it really add anything to it? I don't necessarily think so. So we get back to Emma, and she's been fighting off these doors the whole time. And again, we're going to have Morrison cheat the silence. Hello, Emma. Thanks for the help. You do wonder what exactly she provided in this issue or in this little adventure, aside from maybe being a distraction over here and kept keeping these doors occupied. There they are again, like kind of pleased with themselves. She seems somewhat defeated. And as she gets up, they're grimacing almost like they're laughing at her. They're ready to go. She takes her last shot at the door. She's brought Xavier's swollen head back. I love even the footsteps, just the subtle footsteps, the shadows, everything about this is composed so well. Like I've never understood why people don't really like Quietly's style. I mean, sometimes I get with the faces, but I mean, when you look at all of just the subtlety in his work, sometimes it seems sparse, but it's really not. So we're coming back out. Logan's reading a book. Scott's just sitting there. And he's been going through some stuff at this because before the run, he was kind of taken over by Apocalypse. And so he's going through some stuff in his head. I guess he's listening to music right here. Silence. They come out. Professor X tried to kill his twin sister while they were both still in the womb. We ought to talk. Breaking the silence at the very end. So that was a big twist, revelation, major event for X-Men to say that A, he had a twin sister, and B, it says he tried to kill her in the womb. I think he actually succeeded. And then she became a disembodied, not a spirit, but like a disembodied energy that took some time before she became a disembodied energy that took some time, I guess, many, many years to finally form back and plot a revenge mostly against Charles, but also the world and mutants in general, and just wanting to destroy his dream. Not in the same way Magneto would want to, Magneto just had a different dream. Cassandra just wanted to end it all. Then we get these script pages in the back, so you kind of get an idea. And it's not the whole thing. It's just, I think, maybe half of it. So you kind of see what Morrison was giving Quietly to work with. And I think here it just describes the enough said idea gimmick for the month. So it's cool back matter to add to the book. And this was a return for Quietly, too. I think he'd had a few issues off where Igor Cordy had come on. I think the intention was for Quietly to do a pretty long and extensive run, maybe 12 issues, but deadlines got in the way, and he's so hyper-detailed that, he couldn't keep up with the schedule. Maybe they didn't give him enough lead time. It's hard to say. But, yeah, this is one of the best issues of the whole Morrison run, I would say. And there's very little words to read. But as you can see, I mean, I went through it fairly quick, actually. Because when I sit down and actually read this, I mean, I sit there and I'll stare at each panel for, almost a minute at least for each panel. Definitely a good experiment. Not completely new. I mean, it had been done before, the silent issue. Not to this extent across like the whole line of books, but it's still just like such a solid issue, and it's a good way to do it. And I think Morrison found a way to weave it into like what his story plan was at the time and make it functional within his greater run. So, kudos to the creative team that put this book together, working within the editorial confines of a line-wide gimmick. So that's all I got for New X-Men 121. Until next time, read your comics.